All right, great to see so many friendly faces, friendly names in the attendee list for today. Welcome to the Dashboard Dojo. Today we're going to talk about conditional formatting in Salesforce Reports and Dashboards. So, it's one of those topics that I think gets overlooked, and you start digging into it, and you start realizing these sort of quirky things about it. So I'm excited to go through, what we can do, some of the quirky things, just realities, and then also share some workarounds. And the workarounds are interesting for how to take advantage and just do a little bit more with this concept of conditional formatting. So again, welcome to the Dashboard Dojo. Let's get started. So if it's your first time to the dojo, welcome. The name dojo, or the word dojo in Japanese, it stands for a place to learn the way. And I shared a number of times that I've lived in Japan and really enjoyed visiting dojos for different martial arts. This picture here is kendo. We have lots of recordings. In fact, we have over 30 hours of recordings, and you can find them on the Dashboard Dojo site. We have the most recent sessions recording up, and thank you, Kyle, for putting it in the chat. It's great. All right, so this slide I don't think has ever changed, but we'll do quick introductions. We'll talk about what we're going to talk about today, and we'll get into those techniques and get into those practice, so Waza and Shiai, and then we'll talk a little bit about OpFocus upcoming training, and then the upcoming dojo topic that we have. We can take Q&A throughout. I'll try to keep my eye on the chat. I know Kyle will as well. So who am I? My name is David Carnes. I'm the founder and chairman of OpFocus. Honored to be a Salesforce MVP. And I'm also a football, or as many of us here call it, soccer fan. That's my son lining up to take a free kick last week in his varsity soccer game. I'm watching a lot of soccer this fall, and it's been great. So OpFocus, we're a consulting firm. We work with SaaS companies to help them optimize revenue operations. We've been in the Salesforce community since 2006. So it's really been a lot of fun to watch all this technology evolve. All right. So before we get started, actually, you know what? Let's actually talk about what we're going to talk about, and then I'll have just do a quick poll. So we're going to focus on conditional formatting and reports and conditional formatting and dashboards, specifically lightning tables. But there's some other ways that we can add color and highlight things on both reports and dashboards. So we're going to go through those. So on reports, we can actually have up to 5 columns, summary columns with conditional formatting. I thought 3 was a lot, and I didn't realize that they had upped it to 5. So that's happened sometime in the last couple of years, and I just didn't even notice. I don't think that was in any release notes. I just noticed it this morning. We can use 1, 2, or 3 colors when we use the conditional formatting functionality. And I think a lot of us sort of just knee-jerk adhere to 3 colors and stick with the red, yellow, green, or the red, orange, green, whatever it is. But as you can see here, we're not stuck with that. In fact, we can use millions of colors, and we can show 2 colors highlighted, or even just 1 color if that suits our need. There are some gotchas with this, and including some that I discovered in prepping for today that I hadn't realized. And something just to skip down a bunch of bullets on here is there are differences between conditional formatting and reports and the conditional formatting that's available within lightning tables specifically. And they're noticeable differences. So I want to talk about those. We'll talk about using formulas to get around, how do you do record counts? Because record counts isn't supported by default on reports. It is in lightning tables, but not reports for whatever reason. We'll also talk about using formulas for things like text. So one of the first things to know about conditional formatting in Salesforce reports is that it's based on numeric fields. So it's either numbers or currency fields, and you're summing, averaging, min-maxing, or medianing. Can you even say that? Based on that, we apply conditional formatting. Well, a lot of us are used to what we can do in Excel, and we can say, if it's Bob, show it as red. Well, we can do that within both reports and dashboards in Salesforce. We've got to use formulas, and we've just got to do it a slightly different way. And a lot of times I just suggest using emojis to highlight that. So we've talked about those before in the dojo. So we're going to talk about lightning tables. We'll talk about the differences between reports and lightning tables, and then just other types of conditional formatting that are available in dashboards. All right, so this has been a little bit of a mouthful. I'm really curious, Kyle, could we launch the poll? So I'm curious, what types of conditional formatting have you tried before? And this is a multi-select, so if you want to select them all, if you have used them all, I'm just curious, where is the group today? So we've got folks with using it on reports, maybe using creative formulas on reports to get conditional formatting. Have you done it on a lightning table? Maybe gauge charts, metric charts. All right, so it looks like more than half have done this on reports. Awesome. And less so using formulas, less so using formulas for dashboards. So this is great. Thank you for sharing that. Awesome. And because I didn't introduce him, so Kyle Shagnon is OpFocus's events manager on the marketing team. Thank you for being with us again, Kyle.
Always a pleasure.
All right. I appreciate your help very much. All right, so let's get going. So within reporting, in order to use conditional formatting, you have to have at least one grouping and at least one summary column. And record count does not count as a summary column. In fact, it's just ignored. So you won't even see that button in the bottom right-hand corner. So up in this upper screenshot here with the red arrow, this button here appears in the bottom right-hand corner of a report only when you've grouped it by at least one thing and you've summed, min, maxed, averaged, or used median on one numeric column. So once those two things are true, that button appears and we can now add our first conditional formatting on a column. So as I mentioned earlier, I learned this morning that we can have up to 5 formatted columns per report. For years, I thought it was 3, and I think it was 3 in Classic. It's still 3 in Classic. And if you're in a situation where you're going back and forth between Classic and Lightning, it can be, just know that if you have a report that has 5 in Lightning, it will only show 3 in Classic. There's something strange like that between Lightning and Classic, that it's just not supported in Classic. But hopefully all of you are in Lightning fully these days. So with conditional formatting, we're not stuck with 3 colors. You can show 1, 2, or 3 colors, and you have millions of colors available. So just to walk through these couple of screenshots, again, you have to have grouped by something. So here I've grouped a report by opportunity owner, and you have to have summed by something. So I went to some column, let's say it's the amount, and I've chosen to summarize that. That's what wakes up the conditional formatting button. And then what we're doing is we're adding a conditional formatting rule. And for each column that you want to add conditional formatting, you add a rule. And all of the columns that are summed will appear in this list. It says apply conditional formatting to. And once you've already used one once, you can't use it again. So the list will get smaller as you add additional conditional formatting columns on the same report. So you specify a range. I want to be very clear that this range is not what you think it is. I think I've got a screenshot warning about the gotcha. I do have a screenshot. These ranges are not exactly what you think they are. And this is different than what it was in Classic. For any of you who've been working in reports for years, how the thresholds work in Classic is different than how they work in Lightning. So that's one truth. And it's also different between this in Lightning and Lightning tables, the conditional formatting. The thresholds work differently. And I mention this because if any of you are in healthcare life sciences, or if you're doing anything scientific and you've got lots of decimals, you want to pay attention to what I'm going to share on the next slide about these thresholds. So you go ahead and define the thresholds, and then you can specify the colors. You can see the default red, orangey, and yellow and green. I think yellow is just too bright. Contrast against white, it doesn't look good, so they have the orange. If you want to reduce the number, you can actually X out of any one of these to reduce the number of red, yellow, green thresholds. And you also have, once you click on the color blocks, any of these blocks, you have the ability to have no color. So this is how I'm able to achieve conditional formatting just showing one color. And I want to encourage you that that's often more powerful than having like this big blob of colors all over your report. It sort of loses meaning when everything has color. So just keep in mind that's a tool in your back pocket. This is one other little weird thing that's different between conditional formatting and reports and conditional formatting and dashboards, that in reports, you can actually click on this little white thing with the red bar through it. That means no color. But in dashboards, they show that, but you can't click on it. There's another little box next to it, which is white, and that's what you use to have no color. All right, so that's a lot of talking about sort of the basics of conditional formatting. There are some gotchas to know. So this only supports numerical columns, and they have to be summed. So again, the sum, average, min, max, or median. The record counts are not supported by default, oddly, because that is a summed column, but it's just not supported. I'm going to show you a workaround on that in just a moment using a row level formula. So reports with conditional formatting can be subscribed to. However, when that email is sent of the report subscription, the conditional formatting is stripped. So it doesn't get included in what is sent to the subscriber of the report. So just keep that in mind. Probably the most important thing, I should have highlighted this in red because it's significant, is that the rounding, I don't even know if that's the right word. It's really the threshold management. The threshold it's not what you think. So if you put less than or equal to 5, so if we, just jump back to one screenshot, and here you have less than or equal to, and I put the number 5, right, in that less than or equal to, what that means is all negative values plus positive values up to and including 5.99999. Now, does anyone see what's kind of crazy about that? So if I'm in a manufacturing environment and we have a precision of our tools out to 4 decimal places and it's 5.1268, and I want it to be up to 5, it includes above 5. Like, that's bananas. And I don't know how I didn't notice it. And I guess I didn't notice it because a lot of times I'm not using decimals. But for any of you that need decimals in your work, this is important. So what we see, if you say the middle range is less than 5 and up to 6, it actually goes 6 to 6.99, which to me doesn't make any sense, because I would include 5.00001, but it starts at 6.0. And then if you say over 6, it's actually not over 6, it's 7 and greater. So could I see a show of hands for who thinks that's completely bananas? I know some of you are going to, okay. Looks like everybody agrees with me. Thank you. So has anybody, okay, let's wipe out the hands for a second. I'm going to lower all your hands for 1 second. Let's see if I do that. Okay, could you guys, has anyone noticed that before? If you just raise your hand, I'm really curious, like maybe if you're in life sciences or, okay. So interestingly, this is another thing that's different between conditional formatting on reports and conditional formatting and lightning tables on dashboards. The way the thresholds are managed is different. In the lightning tables on a dashboard, it will include the decimals. The thresholds work the way you'd expect. So for me, this is a problem, but we overcome it in dashboard lightning tables, and I'll show you how. All right, so let's go do a few examples. So I've got some stuff to go play with here. So we're going to do 2 examples using average deal size by industry. Now, if you're in a nonprofit, this could be average gift or average donation. Instead of by industry, it could be by sector or region or donor type or something like that. So our management team wants to understand how deal size by industry, how deal size by industry this year. It's probably like how big or what is the deal size. Sorry about my weird grammar here. And highlight the high and low performing industries. Okay, so we're going to create a report which meets this need. And I do just want to point out that, I used the old screenshot here. I created an example with 1.208990 as the red between red and orange. And what I intended to show, and what I can show you, is that it basically ignores the decimals. So it's just doing it differently than we'd expect. But let's go do this example here. So this is average deal size by industry. So I've got my report set up right here. And if I come in and edit my report, so this report is looking for our current fiscal year, and it's just closed won deals. So I've got my close date current fiscal year, it's closed won deals. I've grouped it by industry. So lo and behold, because I've done that, and because I've averaged the amount, then this conditional formatting button appears down in the bottom right-hand corner. So let's actually go click on this. And this is sort of a weird little early lightning screen that has a little trailheady sort of theme to it, which is, it's always interesting to see this kind of stuff surface in the app. But we need to click the Add Conditional Formatting Rule button. We're only going to have one column that we can apply conditional formatting to. Even though the row count is here, and even though the row count is summed down at the bottom, I can't use it directly. So let's just use the one that we were given here, the average amount. And why don't I do this minus 1 million, and I'll say 1.5. Do I have enough zeros? Yes, I do. Again, over on the right-hand side, we can choose colors. You've got this nice grid of, what is that, 30 or so colors. And then you have the ability to choose millions of colors. You could use your corporate color. If you know the hex or the RGB number, you could align with the corporate color scheme that you have if you want. I'll go ahead and change this one to pink, because why not? And I'll say done. I'll leave the other two as is. I'll go ahead and click done. And this button here is grayed out, and it says to add more rules, add an aggregate measure, or you can do this with a custom summary formula. So you just have to summarize something else to be able to add, again, up to 2, 3, 4, or 5 total conditional formatting rules per report. So let's go ahead and click apply. And you can see we're looking at sample data here. I strongly suggest that if you're new to this, don't base your thresholds based on sample data. So you see here apparel's at 2 million, and biotech's 237,000, and consulting's 2 million. I'm going to go ahead and run this. And you can see that the numbers are all different with the actual. So, you know, when setting thresholds for anything, for a gas gauge, for a metric, for a lightning table, you want to, you know, sort of get your sample size to do the red, yellow, green based on actual data, not what's in the preview pane. So you can see here the pink for that below 1 million, and then I can see the amounts here, and I can see we do have 2 greens in here that are over $1.5 million. All right. So let's do the same thing, but management is asking for one more piece of information. So what they want is, they realize that record count conditional formatting isn't supported, so they want us to solve that for them. What they want to see is something like this, where I've got a way of showing the count and doing conditional formatting on that as well. So the way that we do that is just using a row level formula. And I'm moving all these Zoom screens so I can see what my threshold should be. So let's go ahead and modify this report, and let's add another conditional formatting directly on this. So we cannot add it directly with record count, but if I come back and I edit my report, what you can do is add a row level formula and just have the formula equal 1. So let's call this count. Let's leave it a number. I probably don't need decimals. I really don't need decimals. I'm going to go ahead and just, this is using the power of 1 example, which is, if you're not familiar with what that is, it's something you could search for, Salesforce power of 1 formula, something like that. And it's just another way of counting. giving you more flexibility. So the numbers should be identical, and they are, but this is going to allow me to put a conditional format on the count. What I'll probably do here to just not have double columns is I'll turn off the row count here, and then I'll come back to my conditional formatting, add a second conditional formatting rule. It only has one option because the other one is being used, the other summary column. So we're going to use that sum of count. And why don't we go ahead and do up to 10 and below 20. Now, again, we're in preview data, and it's really helpful to just look at this with real data to see, okay, now I'm seeing some greens and some. So why would I do something like this? Well, it's really great that communications, we've sold our highest average deal size is communication, but we have a really small sample, right? So we only sold 7 deals within that industry to earn that 1.6, almost 1.7 million. Whereas with apparel, we had 23 deals, and it's a smaller average deal size, but this may impact how we think about where we're going to invest our marketing dollars heading into 2023, based on, these two numbers side by side. It's hard to look at. I think this orange looks like brown on my screen. I don't know what it looks like for you guys. It just sort of looks putrid or something. It's not all that appealing. I might go back and tweak. If I'd probably, again, steer away from yellow. It's just too bright compared to white. You lose the ability to see the numbers. So I'd pick sort of darker contrasting colors for this. All right, I haven't looked at the chat. Any questions in there? No, looks like none. All right, so let's do one more example before we move on to lightning tables. So let's talk about reps that have gaps in their pipeline. This is such a gift that you can give a new head of sales or a new head of fundraising in your organization. So, or even if you just want to know, and you could essentially create a matrix report grouped by owner and stage, or grouped by region and stage, country or stage, and then use conditional formatting. In this case, I just want one color because otherwise it's just too much color. So what we have is a report on open opportunities, and we're going to make it lime green because that's the CRO, the Chief Revenue Officer's favorite color. So if we come back in here, I think I've got a couple of tabs I don't need. So I've got a report that I've started, and this report is on the opportunity report type. It's showing all opportunities, and for some reason I thought this was going to be open opportunities, but let's go ahead and, you know what I did? I did closed equals false. So it is open. If you're curious, probably normally I would just use this open opportunity status equals open. I did think to point out, in case you're not aware, there are system generated formulas there's a system generated formula for closed. There's another one for one. And if you set closed equals false, that can be helpful so that you're not always tying everything to actual stage names. Stage names change over the years. A new CRO comes on board. She wants her own stages. So rather than dealing with that, you can use closed equals false. You can do the same thing on cases. Probably what I could have just done to make my life easier is just use the standard filter here for opportunity status is open. It works the same. Now, if I come back over here, this is a matrix report. It's grouped by owner and stage, and I have summed the amount. So everything is ready to do a conditional formatting. And then we'll add the conditional formatting rule. Now notice I can X out of one of those, and I can use I don't want any color for another one. So now we were asked to use lime green, and I can come back in here. It looks like I've got a nice lime green here, but I want to pick from millions of colors. So let's make it really limey green. Okay, this is super limey green. And let's put a number in here. How about 150,000? Let's go ahead and apply that. And again, this is a lot of green, but it's the preview pane. Don't make business decisions based on the preview pane. Let's go ahead and run it, and we'll see what it looks like with actual data. And what I can see from this is this sales guy here, David, is in trouble. He has nothing at the top of the funnel. He has nothing at the bottom of the funnel. He's sort of got a wing and a prayer on whatever's in this middle opportunity stage here. But you can essentially look down, especially if you have a lot of reps. It can be quite nice to look like Evelyn Williamson. I think she's one of our top reps, but she has nothing at the bottom of the pipeline, nothing at the bottom of her funnel. So she won't make her number this quarter unless we somehow accelerate the deals in the middle here. So it's sort of an interesting way of looking at the data. All right. So that's a way of using conditional formatting to target specific numeric values. All right, so what do we do with text? Well, remember that formulas solve problems. So anytime you sort of run into a problem in reporting and you're not sure how to proceed, just keep in the back of your mind that formulas may help you out of the jam. So in this case, we're creating a row-level formula with emojis. We've done these many times in the Dōjō, so you've seen different examples of these. We're not limited to 3 colors. We could have 10 colors here. I'm just using the emoji blocks of red, yellow, and green here. It doesn't highlight the actual number itself or the actual word itself. In this case, I'm highlighting text based on the case priority. So it's a very simple formula. I've got, looks like I don't have that example open, but let's actually go find that example. Cases with priority formatting here. And just to show you what I did was I went up under here, added a row level formula. The formula is very simple. What's not well known is within row level formulas, they only show date, logical, and math functions, but we also have available many other functions as well, including text functions. And I'll show an example in a moment using a contains function, which is a text function, and it works just fine. So don't feel like you're limited to these 54 functions. There are closer to 100 functions available. And it's true with operators as well. There are more operators available to you within your row level formulas than these 7 or so that appear. So this is a very simple little formula. The case priority field is required, so the letters NA will never appear. I can validate that. Looks like it's a good formula, and what we see is this here. So this is using a case function to highlight pick list values. Let's look at one more example, which is I want to go find a keyword, and it could be in a subject field, it could be in another type of field. There's this word stakeholder, and anytime that word appears, I want to just flag the record. And I'm flagging the record again using an emoji because I can. And this is, I'm just using a little target emoji here. But this formula is very simple. It's again using a text function, if contains, and I'm evaluating the subject field for each record. And if it contains the word stakeholder, comma, then put a true. And the true is the text of the emoji, comma, and then what is the value? If it's false, that's a null. So we've talked about different examples with formulas. We have many hours of recordings in the Dashboard Dōjō on how to write formulas, but I just wanted to show you a couple of examples. Thank you for putting that in the chat, Kyle. So Pablo asked the question, why do you insert a color box into the formula editor? That's to just show color. So this session is on conditional formatting, and I just want to show color. We could put text in there as well, but this idea of conditional formatting, I want to show something with color, make it more visible on the report. So for some of you, probably like you, Pablo, so because I know about your org, you've got a large data set, and if you just want to highlight specific unique records, we can do that using a formula. The way that I'm doing it, I'm using on my Mac Control Command Spacebar, and it pops up the emoji editor, and there are literally hundreds and hundreds of emojis that you can choose from. I forget the keyboard sequence for a PC, but if you Google it, you can find it pretty easily. Okay, so yeah, Pablo asked the how. No worries, Pablo. I was guessing that maybe was what you meant. And again, just to recap that, if we go back to the field, emojis are just text. It's just like a Japanese character, a kanji, just a multi-byte text. And if you just have a formula with a text output, and in this case, I'm using a case function which says, hey, evaluate the priority field. If it's high, show this text, which quote unquote red block. And again, I just use the emoji keyboard sequence to allow me to pick which emoji I want. So hopefully that answers it. So Carmen asked the question, how can you create a formula in a way that we can sort it in the report? Oh, look at that. You can absolutely sort it. So watch this. So it's a great question, Carmen. I can sort based on the colors that I've chosen. So you can sort any formula, any row level formula, you can sort it. So let me be clear. It's a row level formula that I'm sorting by here. So you can just click on the column header. You can also use the pull down and choose sort ascending and sort descending for that. So whatever you have as the output of your formula, Carmen, you can sort by that. So if it's text or numbers or emojis in this case. So Kimberly asked the question, since you're limited to only one row of formula, if there are multiple criteria and multiple fields, it would be pretty complex to formulate. Yes. And I'm going to show you an example of that. Great question, Kimberly. I'm going to show you an example defining an ideal client profile. So Branda says, I think it's the windows and the period. It's something like that, the keyboard sequence. Awesome. Okay, great. Let's keep going. All right, so let's shift gears. Let's talk about lightning tables. So within a lightning table, you know that you can show up to 10 columns wide. You can show up to 200 columns, 200 rows, sorry, up to 10 columns wide, up to 200 rows tall. You can show individual records. You can show grouped data. This only works with grouped data within your lightning table. So in this screenshot here, I've got, it looks like opportunity deal information grouped by the account industry. And I have a bunch of summary columns, but I can only do conditional formatting on one of them, which is, so Matt asked the question, is the ascending or descending based on the order in which they appear in the case formula? That's a really good question. I'm going to just jump back to that example because I don't want to lose it on my screen here. So this is, I can't even tell. Okay, so this is now descending and it's green on top, yellow, red. That's descending. And ascending must be the other way around, red, yellow, green. If I go back and look at the column, ascending, red, yellow, green. Let's mix this up. I kind of wish I had more values to play with, but just to try to answer that question, let's validate it. Okay, I'm really anal about this. I'm going to get rid of that one extra space, which doesn't actually matter at all, but just because. So now if I play with my, did this change the order? No, it didn't change the order. So it's something else about, the colors, the emojis, and they must have some value to them. So it would take me a little bit more to play with that. So Matt, it's a great question. I think I'd need to play with it a little bit more to figure out how our emojis ordered. One other way that they may be ordered is just how they appear here, how they appear within the list, but I haven't played with it enough to know. That's a great question. Yeah, so Nicole suggested it could be sorted by Unicode character number. I think it's something like that. Okay, so back to lightning tables. You can, this supports record count. So record count was not supported in lightning reports, conditional formatting and reports, but it is supported within a lightning table. So that's kind of interesting. You don't have to write any formula, and you can also do it on any summed column. So in this case, I've got the average of the amounts, You can do 1, 2, or 3 colors, but it works differently than the report conditional formatting. Millions of colors available. One other sort of difference is that the totals are not highlighted. So back on our one of these, I've got no. I don't have an example with the totals highlighted, but oh well. In the Lightning table, the totals are not highlighted. In Lightning reports, the totals are highlighted if it meets your criteria. So when we're using Lightning tables on a dashboard, we've talked about this before in the Dōjō, they just ignore your report, your source reports groups, the columns and the summary columns. It just ignores all that, and you're kind of starting over. The Lightning table is based on the underlying report type that you use for the source report and the filters and any summary columns you add to that source report. Any formulas, sorry. So if you've got formulas, let me say that all again. Your source reports report type is used by the Lightning table. Your source reports filters, your source reports formulas are used by the Lightning table, but it ignores your groupings, your whatever columns you have, and the summary columns, and you're basically redoing them when you're creating a Lightning table. So there are some pretty significant differences between Lightning tables versus conditional formatting and reports. So we can only have one in a Lightning table. The record counts are supported, as I mentioned. The decimals are respected in the Lightning thresholds and Lightning tables, but they're, as I mentioned, I believe they're ignored in reports. So I want to circle back. It's what it says in the help. So the Lightning tables omit the totals from the conditional formatting. And we have to have 3 colors when you're creating a Lightning table, but 2 of them can be white. So when you come in here to these 3 choices in your Lightning table conditioning formatting, you can make 2 of them white. You can't get rid of any of these choices like we can on the report. So there's a couple of interesting differences. All right, let's go build one of these. So our investors are tracking our average deal size closely, and they've asked for a visual by industry. So what we're going to do here is create a report using the average deal size by industry. Actually, I've already got the report since we did that example earlier. And then we're going to use the highlight column. We're going to add the conditional highlighting. We're going to highlight column on the average amount. And then we're going to put in our segment ranges. We can adjust the colors if we wish. So this is pretty straightforward. I've got a dashboard started. And this is what the output of what we'll create. I'll just go from here and show you. So normally I would edit the dashboard. I'd go ahead and add a new component. I've already got it here. So I'll just, you know what? Let's actually go ahead and add it. Average deal size. Let's actually do it from scratch just so that we see it. So this is the one I want. Let's go make it a Lightning table. Now notice you're getting rows and columns. This is ungrouped data. So you can have up to 10 columns. You can have up to 200 rows. Let's go ahead and add a grouping. This is by industry. So it ignores the grouping on the source report. Again, it gives us a record count, which we can use. I can go ahead and take something like the amount, and I can sum average, max, min, or with the winter 23 release. Or was this the summer release? Gosh, I don't remember. I think it was the summer release that we can do median as well. I like to see full numbers when I work with pipeline data, but I can go ahead and let's show the total. Let's add conditional highlighting. And notice the default is it's working on record count. So this did not work on a report, conditional formatting, but it works in a Lightning table just directly. You can have a record count if you wish. I'm going to go ahead and put it on the average amount. And in my example here, I did this 1.208990. And the reason I did that was to just show that the decimals counted, and that this is in the yellow instead of the red. whereas on the reports it would be dropped. But let's just pick some other numbers here. Let's do 1.25 million. And let's do 1.5 million. You know, it's funny, I normally actually do these the other way around. I'll always start with the bottom one and then I don't get those errors. So it's just an old habit because they still have these errors showing here, but you won't see the errors if you start on the bottom. Okay. Decimals, if you want decimals, include them. If not, you know, I'd say be precise. You can go up to 5 decimals. When you're using a lightning table, it's much more likely that you're going to need to redo the title. So this is average deal size by industry, and I just got some extra letters on there, so I'll get rid of it. But because you're basically starting over when you add a lightning table, adding a new grouping, adding measure columns, adding columns, you very well may need to rename this. So let's go ahead and add this. Probably got a little too much room here on the bottom, but I'll go ahead and save that. All right, so we see that there's one at 1.69, another at 1.569 million, et cetera. So this is very straightforward. If I were to come back and add another, I can't. So basically, even if I have other columns on here, so let's go add a couple more measures. So let's go to the amount and let's add the sum and the max amounts. So those columns appear, but I'm still limited to just the one conditional formatting column. So I can't have more conditional formatting columns than that. All right, haven't looked at the chat in a minute. Okay, great. All right, let's do just a couple more quick examples. Management takes case aging seriously, and they want to see the bottom 5 agents by aging open cases with any older than X highlighted. So we can pick what the X is. It looks like I've picked 1700 here. And we can just show one color if we want, just set the other two to white. Here's that weird thing that I noticed, the difference between the report formatting and the dashboard formatting. It shows you this white box with the line through it, but you can't click on it. You have to pick the color white to have it show as no color. And so I don't know why the engineering teams did those two differently, but that's what we have. So this example here, I've got this one set up, a starting point here. And what I'm going to do is, it looks like I've already got this on the dashboard. Just to show you how this one was done, I have this source report that has all of our support agents and how long their open cases have been open. And we're going to say what are the bottom 5. So if I come in here, I made this a lightning table. I grouped it by case owner. I added a measure on the average of the age. I displayed it as full numbers. I added the conditional highlighting, and I said, if it's over 1700, and because I don't even care about the other 2 thresholds, I just set it at a really low number, like 1. And then I went into the colors. Again, I can't select that. It's so strange. I can't select that color, but I can set it to just white. And I set 2 of them to white and left that other one red. I made it really bright red, fire truck red, something like that. And then to make this a top 5 list or a bottom 5 list, what I did was I set the max groups displayed to 5. And then the other thing that I did was I sorted by the average age descending. And that's how I'm getting Eric is just taking his sweet old time closing these cases. And so is Dennis, we got to get on them. But that's how to do that within a lightning table. All right, so other types of conditional formatting, we've got metric charts. We've talked about these in the Dōjō before. These show the grand total of a source report. And just like the others, you have 3 color choices. You can just have one as the highlight. This is a way of doing like a target versus actual. I've got my quota for the year for the team. This is what we're working toward. Until we're at that level, it's not green, it's some other color. Just make sure you pick colors that are dark enough, high enough contrast against the dashboard's background to be visible. The same is true of a gas gauge. Both gas gauges and metric charts use the grand total of the source report. And once again, you've got two extra thresholds here. Basically, what's the starting point? You don't have to start at 0. You can start above 0. And then again, what's the high end? So there are 4 segment ranges on a gas gauge versus the 2 on a metric chart. So 2 other examples. If I use a row level formula in the source report, I can pull that through. So using the conditional formatting on a lightning table, normally you have to have a grouped lightning table. So it's summary data that's grouped by something. But if you wish to pull in some color into your lightning table when it's only individual records, you can do that just in your source report. And I'm just reusing the source report from before, where I had, if the activity has the word stakeholder in it, show this icon. Thank you for putting that in the chat, Kyle. And you can put that on a dashboard. Similarly, you can also do something like you could group your table by an emoji. So basically you're creating a formula doing grouping. You can do the same with a bucket column. Bucket columns can also have the output of emoji if you wish. But with a formula, what's kind of cool and why I want to show you this particular example. So let's go find that particular example. This source report is, I want to figure out, are these deals in our ideal client profile or not? Usually when a company has an ideal client profile, they have some target in mind. The target in this case, I've just used some account data. So this is a report on opportunities. All opportunity reports are tied at the hip with the source account or the associated account. And what you could do is do something like create a row level formula. So I chose row level formula. And in this case, I'm using it to group by these emojis. But if if it's apparel or agriculture, and the country is China, US, and Canada, and if the annual revenue, even though it shows up as sales, it's the annual revenue field, is over $1 million, then if that's true, show the on target, the little arrow in the target icon, otherwise show the clown. Okay, obviously I'm goofing around here, but we're not limited to 2. You could have 10 different levels if you want. I'm just grouping this into 2. Is it in our ideal client profile or not? And this is just a very simple little sample of what's in our ideal client profile. Clearly, for this to work, you have to have enriched account data that's accurate to say what's in your ideal client profile or not. But typically with things that are in your ideal client profile, you work a little harder to make sure those key fields are updated. So now that that's there, I have a dashboard component, open pipeline by ideal client profile or not. And this is just a lightning table where I'm grouping it by that row level formula. And you can see the on target, the sum of the amount. So it looks like we've got a little itty bitty amount of pipeline for our ideal client profile. And we've got an awful lot of sales going on. So this is an unfocused company, by the way. Something's got to change here because this is a problem. All right. All right. So thank you, Kyle, for putting those examples in the chat. So we talked about a bunch of stuff today, conditional formatting and reports. So you can have up to 5 per report. You can use 1, 2, or 3 colors. You're not stuck with 3. You can lessen that. You have choices of millions of colors. Keep in mind your company has branding and has like a color palette. You can tap into that and use that if you wish. There are some gotchas with using the conditional formatting, specifically what I discovered in the help documentation today around the what it does with decimals. We talked about using formulas to handle record counts within reports, which is not supported by default. We talked about using formulas for text. So this is a big difference between Excel, where you can say, if it's Bob, show it as red, or if it's Tina, show it as purple. We don't have that directly within conditional formatting in Salesforce, so we would use formulas to achieve that. We talked about conditional formatting and lightning tables. We talked about the differences between conditional formatting and reports and dashboards. And then we talked about a few other types of conditional formatting just to try to squeeze a little more value out of all this stuff. All right. Can we do one more poll? I just am excited. If you guys could pick one thing that you learned today, and which one would you try? So which one of these are you excited? So conditional formatting and reports, I think 54% of you said you'd already use that. So maybe you're going to be excited about other things. Oh, Kyle, you lopped off my bottom choice there.
Which one?
I'm teasing. My bottom choice was I'm going to have somebody else work on it.
Oh.
I'm just teasing. It's fine. All right. So it looks like.
Oh, no, it's there. You just have to scroll down.
Oh, it is there? Oh, I'm just too zoomed in. Look at you. Okay, so nobody is saying that. Okay, good. I'm sorry. That's too funny. My resolution's set. Okay, somebody picked it. Awesome. So we've got 29% saying creative formulas pulled through to dashboards. Awesome. That makes me so happy. We have over 3 hours. In fact, we have 5 hours of formula recordings. There were 3 last year in February and March of 2021. And then there were 2 earlier this year one related to formulas for sales, another related to formulas for service. So I'm psyched to see you guys excited to use formulas on both dashboards and reports. Great. Did I actually share the results, Kyle? I don't know if we did. Did they see it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, great. All right, good. So I've got an admin class I'm teaching coming up November 7th through the 11th. It's not in person like this photo was, but we'll do it virtually. We'll go from 10 to 4:30 each day, something like that. Details are on OpFocus.com if that's helpful to you. We do have on November 2nd, the next Dōjō coming up on mobile reporting. So I'm excited to hear what people think of the mobile reporting, and I'm excited to hear if any of you have used it or if you're aware of some of the new features. There's some new features in winter 23. There's going to be more overhaul of mobile reporting in the spring 23 release as well. But hope you can join us. Any additional questions? So it looks like Chris, he's unable to copy Zoom chat. This is a common issue. Okay, so Chris is asking for the file. So I'll make a note of that. Oh, thank you, Kyle, for doing that. That's great. Thank you, Kathy. So if there are any other questions, we can stay on for a couple minutes. Thank you, Bill. All right, so Pablo's dabbled into mobile reporting. Yes, yes. So there's some good stuff coming, Pablo. There's a beta right now that allows you to do some good things. Thank you for all the feedback. This is great. Appreciate all of you. So Pablo, I'm excited to dig into a little bit more what we can do. I just have to find a good emulator for so I can show the mobile on the laptop. I'm sure there's one out there. Awesome. Well, thank you for all the feedback, everyone. Look forward to seeing you on November 2nd. Hope you can join us again. Thank you for being part of this. And thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, everyone.